Hello, chess friends. Today we will explore a game I played with up-and-coming young talent Daniel Ding with a FIDE rating of 1880. So let us begin. The game started with e4. We have c5, the Sicilian defense, a move that gained popularity after the Netflix show The Queen's Gambit. Black aims to attack white's center from the queenside flank. It is heavily theoretical, and I hate theory, so I played the move d4, known as the Smith-Morra Gambit. My opponent took the pawn happily, so I decided to offer another one. Here, take my pawn, which he did, not knowing he would face the consequences in about 3 moves. I recaptured with my knight, developing my piece while my opponent has all his pieces on the back rank. I have sacrificed a pawn, but I do not care about the material as I am not materialistic. Rather, I will go for piece activity and launch an attack at my opponent's king quickly before he has a chance to look up. My opponent plays e6, taking over control of the crucial d5 square. But at the same time, he creates a weakness on d6, a weakness that will come to haunt him in due time. I responded knight to f3, just developing a piece and increasing my control over the central squares. My opponent liked my move and decided to mirror me on the other side of the board with knight to c6. I developed my bishop, and already here, the game may look roughly equal. But I have 3 pieces developed and you only have 1. My opponent could continue by developing his bishop to b4, pinning my knight, and then develop his knight and castle. But he decided to go for a line considered to be the professional's choice, employed by those at a high level, but he has gotten his move orders mixed up, and he's about to get punished for it. The correct move in this position is a6, taking control of the b5 square, preventing my knight from plonking in on b5, attacking the weak d6 and c7 squares. My poor opponent just wanted to develop and castle, so he moved his king's knight to the e7 square. But now I can punish him by playing the move bishop to g5, pinning the knight to the queen. A 500 ELO player might ask, why can't I just kick the bishop with f6 or h6 or some other 200 ELO rated move? That is what my opponent played, but it doesn't help him because I can sacrifice my bishop on g5 by playing the amazing move that would have been prevented had my opponent not forgotten move order. Knight to b5. For those of you who still cannot see what I am saying, I am threatening to checkmate the black king on the d6 square. If you capture my bishop on g5, knight to d6 will indeed come to ruin. Your day. That is why my opponent, being 1800 plus ELO, did not take my bishop, but rather played pawn to d5, counter-attacking my bishop. To the untrained eye, it may look like I am going to lose a piece, but no fool, this is god-level chess, and we are here for blood. I retreat my bishop to f4, aiming my 2 pieces at the c7 square. You may laugh and say, haha, now I win your bishop. Give me that piece now so I can win the game. But your teeth will be shattered when I play knight to c7 check. Notice after the pawn capture, the d file is now open, and my queen takes away your precious king's retreating squares. The only move now is to give up your queen to prevent checkmate. This move is forced, and after bishop captures, the position will be lost for you, as I just won your queen for my light-squared bishop. It is time to resign. But my opponent, being the up-and-coming talent he is, sees all of this and says, I will not let you get me that easily, and he pushes the pawn to e5, attacking my dark-squared bishop and cutting the connection to c7. Once again, 2 of my pieces are 1 centimeter from the noose. But did this move come as a surprise to me? Of course not, fool. This was already calculated from before I retreated my dark-squared bishop. Now watch and learn. I can light the board on fire with knight takes e5, and if you so dare to capture my bishop, thinking it is a free piece, you will be dead in the water after the following sequence. Queen takes queen. If you choose to capture with knight so you can keep your castling rights, knight to c7 will come to checkmate the king. Yes, you see it now, my monster. Knight on e5 controls both the d7 and f7 squares, preventing the king's escape. So you will be forced to capture with the king, where knight takes f7 check will come to fork you and your rook. After king d7, I will first play queenside castle, checking the king, and you will be forced to give up a knight, as moving your king back to e8 will result in knight takes rook on h8, not only winning the rook, but taking the f7 square from the king, and knight c7 will again be checkmate, where the only way to prevent it is bishop to d7, allowing the king to run behind the cover of your poor undeveloped bishop. And after knight c7 check, yes, your king can run, but oh no, your rook will be lost on a8, and the game will be over for you like it was 10 moves ago. So going back to the original position, we see that taking the bishop is impossible, as it leaves you with a completely dead lost position after a mere 5 more moves. Which is why my opponent played queen to a5 with a check, vacating the d8 square for his king if needed, and putting my king in check. Any normal player here would consider moves such as bishop to d2, counter-attacking the queen, but this would be a rubbish move, as after queen back to d8, the position repeats itself, except my bishop has moved to a passive position and my threats of knight c7 are no longer. It is for this reason I considered a move that Magnus Carlsen and people who are not you would also consider. I played the move dad bod shuffle king to f1, which is in fact the best move in the position. The problem is now I am threatening to take the knight and fork you with knight to c7 check, as my bishop was not retreated. What do you even do here now as black? How do you defend? My opponent decided to eliminate my strong attacking knight on e5, thinking that would quell the fire, and maybe if I was 1500 points less ELO rated it would. But unlucky for him, my deep calculation has already assessed this position, and my opponent will now face big problems on the queenside dark squares. My bishop stands immortal on c4, immune from capture due to the checkmate from my knight, which is why my opponent played his brother knight to c6, coming to avenge his fallen comrade knight. But this is a completely losing move, and the king is about to be majorly exposed. Although both my bishops are once again hanging, I can insert a check with knight to c7 anyway. The move that was dreaded for all these moves comes anyway when least expected. To avoid moving his king in line with my queen on the d file, my opponent played king to e7. Many low-rated players or people who do not know how to play chess may consider taking the rook, but not me. Recognizing the vulnerable position of the king, I move my knight back to and take the pawn on the d5 square, opening up the file and delivering another check to the king. Moving the king to the d file is not advised, as you will align it with my queen, and after knight to f6 check, there is no way to prevent checkmate. My bishop will slice away your escape squares along with my knight, and after king to d6, queen d6 will throw dust into your eyes, and when you wake up the game will be over for you, as the queen will deliver checkmate on d6. Going back to the position, that is why my opponent, with a heavy heart, moved his king to the e6 square, choosing the lesser of two evils and aligning it with my light square bishop. He is hoping I will play a 200 elo move like knight to c7 discovered check to go after the rook, and he will play king takes bishop on e5. His king is in the center, and it is still winning for white, but black will live a little longer. But lucky for me, and unlucky for him, I played an incredibly strong move, which made 4,000 ELO chess engines like Stockfish and AlphaZero nod their heads in approval. Bishop to c7, kaboom, kabang, kapow. The queen is hit firstly, but in moving the bishop to this square, I have just trapped the black king in a box in the center of the board. My bishop and knight do a great job controlling the dark squares around the king. The pawn controls the f5 square, and the d7 square will be controlled by my big brain move that you currently are unable to see. In this position, the only move for black to survive is to give up the queen for the bishop. Of course, it is still completely lost for black, but this will extend the game by a few more moves or so. Unfortunately, my opponent could not bear to part with his precious queen and played queen to c5. And before he could say the words, "I resign," my queen teleported to the g4 square, slicing through the king and taking under control the d7 escape square. f5 followed, and queen takes f5 is checkmate in the middle of the board. King stuck with his pants on the ground, while phones stand around him in the box, taking photos of the vulnerable king. This game showed how just one mistake in the opening and one weak square, coupled with godlike chess and peace sacrifices, can yield a quick victory if the opponent is not careful and can't calculate 70 to move deep lines like me. Until the next time. Thank you for watching, chess friends.